Amid escalating global tensions as leaders face down high-stakes trade talks, an unravelling Middle East and the war in Ukraine. On trade, US President Donald Trump and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer sealed a deal cutting tariffs on UK aerospace goods and capping car exports to the US at 100,000 units under preferential rates. Agricultural progress was made, but divisions remain, especially over steel and aluminium. Canada's PM Mark Carney and Trump agreed to finalise a broader deal within 30 days, despite disagreements on tariff philosophy. Japan's Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba and Trump failed to reach a consensus on auto tariffs, pushing talks to next week's NATO summit. Meanwhile, Middle East escalations drew global attention after Trump abruptly left the summit. French President Emmanuel Macron claimed Trump returned to Washington to broker a ceasefire between Israel and Iran. Trump fiercely denied this, calling Macron publicity-seeking and insisting his departure was for much bigger reasons. The G7 issued a strong statement backing Israel's right to defend itself and calling Iran a threat, while pushing for a ceasefire in Gaza. Trump later said Iran must give up entirely on nuclear ambitions and warned of possible US envoy talks with Tehran. On the other hand, regarding the Russia-Ukraine war, Trump stirred debate by calling Moscow's 2014 expulsion from what was then the G8 a big mistake. The Kremlin agreed but dismissed the G7 as useless in today's world. Trump claimed Putin's exclusion contributed to the 2022 invasion of Ukraine. Meanwhile, Ukraine reeled from a deadly Russian strike on Kyiv that killed at least 14 people, according to local officials, and prompted fresh outrage from Kyiv over the world's inaction. Well, as we look towards another day of discussions at the G7, further updates have been coming in from Canada. It is morning over there, and joining us on the programme is Megha Sharma, our Senior Executive Editor at NewsX World, who is joining us from Banff, Alberta in Canada, close to Kananaskis, where these bilateral, trilateral and other talks are taking place. So Megha, we brought an update on the state of play after yesterday's talks. What can you tell us about this morning?
Right, now this morning is going to be majorly dedicated to the outreach nations, the 6 of them, including India, Ukraine, Brazil and South Korea, who have descended on to Kananaskis for the G7 plus leaders summit. Their welcome, the official welcome that the G7 nations are going to do of the outreach nations is going to happen at 11 a.m. local time. After that, there is going to be a working session on energy security where all the outreach nations along with the G7 nations are going to participate. After that, there is going to be a spate of bilaterals that is going to take place. India, led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, will be holding bilaterals with his Ukrainian counterpart. Also on the anvil is his bilateral with the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, and the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. So, and there are also press conferences, press briefings that are lined up, because we already saw yesterday the working session of the G7 leaders concluded. Now today is the parting thoughts that are going to be shared by the leaders. So there is going to be the German Chancellor who's going to be holding a press conference. We will have the Italian Prime Minister. We'll have a European Union Commission, the European Union Commission President. Mark Carney will also be holding a concluding press conference as the day progresses. It is the third day and the concluding day of the G7 Leaders Summit here.
Absolutely, and that concluding day, Megha, has been shifted potentially in terms of direction, given that Donald Trump left last night. Of course, a lot of those countries that you've mentioned who have been invited, not core G7 countries, were hoping to have further conversations with Donald Trump amidst trade tensions globally. How do you think these leaders can still utilise the opportunities they have, and how might they strike further deals with other countries in bilaterals without Trump there?
Yes, this would have been a golden opportunity for a number of these nations, including South Korea and India and Brazil, to have had a one-on-one conversation, maybe on the sidelines, maybe a meet or greet, or even a pull-aside that could have been organized just to send out a message from each of these countries of what is it that they're looking forward in terms of striking a deal with the United States of America. Yesterday, we saw, making the most of the time when the U.S. President was here, a bilateral that took place between the U.K. Prime Minister and his U.S. counterpart. We also saw, of course, the bilateral that took place between Mark Carney and Donald Trump. And both of these countries came out hopeful of, in fact, UK and US have already signed that proclamation with that meeting that was held between both the leaders, which seals the deal officially for the UK United States trade deal to come into effect. The date is yet to be announced, even as we speak. And on the matter of the Canada-US trade deal, there has been a 30-day period that has been announced by both the leaders, during which there are going to be hectic negotiations taking place to come to a conclusion and sign an agreement with regards to trade. The Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba was a little disappointed yesterday after he held that bilateral with Trump, saying that they have not been able to reach any conclusive agreement thus far during that short one-to-one he had with President Trump on the sideline. So that gives us a fair idea of how these three countries stand. But equally important was for South Korean President, who has been newly elected and has a lot to carry on his shoulders towards the economic prosperity of his country, to strike that deal with Trump. So again, work is going on at official, the official level between South Korea and United States. Obviously, then there are going to be more talks that are going to be held at the Commerce Ministry level, Commerce Secretary level between both countries, and something similar goes for India and Brazil. So that's where the situation, the status quo is, especially after Trump had to make this sudden exit yesterday night from the G7 summit.
Absolutely. Megha Sharma, thank you ever so much for joining us live from Alberta. We will continue to bring you updates from that G7 summit, of course.